Guys, time for model update, and this week I have had a pretty shitty week. It's fair to say. It's been pretty bad. If you see my previous video to this, not the previous model update but the previous video I loaded, some of you will know how my week started off. For those of you who don't know, basically I was doing a video, I was out and about on my bike, and as I was coming down the side of a hill, there was a stump sticking out of the road, and I went straight over the top of the handlebars, and I spent the next day in accident and emergency with a concussion, injuries to my neck, my shoulder, my elbow, my ribs, my head, my forearm there. I was pretty much, I was kind of banged up. I mean, I'm still missing skin on that elbow there. You can see this is actually sort of, what's this now, after 6 days you can still see stuff seeping through there, and that's all bruised up and everything. My shoulder's knackered. I'm scuffed up everywhere from head to foot. Got road rash all over me. So I spent a long time in X-ray, which was kind of fun. I had an odd comment off the doctor then. He said, "You've got good looking bones." It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird, I'm not being funny. It's an odd thing to say to somebody. I've never, you know, good looking bones. Weird. But turns out that, you know, I had a concussion, and it's mainly bruising of the bones on the joints. My camera's actually okay, which was a surprise because it actually landed on my camera. It landed on the back of my head, my shoulders. My camera was in my side here, and it smashed my ribs. So that was the first. That's how my week started. But that's not how it finished. It just kept getting a little bit worse every day. I had to do some gardening, and as you can imagine, it's not easy doing gardening when you can't lift anything. I mean, I couldn't pick my shoulders up. I certainly couldn't. I could lift my shoulders up, but I couldn't really carry anything, like anything at all. A cup of coffee was a challenge. But I had to get the garden done because we didn't know what was happening with the weather. We didn't know if it was going to turn bad or what. And my garden needed doing. It desperately needed doing. So I got that done, and then I found out that my back door to my garden had been kicked in, and somebody had nicked the steel framed window out of the side of my shed. Like, it was straight out of the wall. Just pulled the window straight out of the wall and run off with it. Like, if it had just fallen out, it would have been in next door's garden, and even if the glass had smashed, you'd still be able to see the steel frame. But there was no glass in the shed, there was no glass outside of the shed, and the steel frame was missing, so the whole unit was gone. So now there's a bloody big hole in my shed where the window used to be. So now I've got to go and build a new back door to my garden and a new window frame and put a window into my shed. So that's all fun, but enough of that. Let's get on with the model update. Moving on. Okay, so this is how Red Dwarf is now looking. It's only had sort of 2 really thin coats of red. So there's plenty more to happen. But yeah, now I'm just waiting for red paint to arrive. Yeah, I'd like to put it on in really thin coats so that I can build it up. So it's going to take about another 4 coats, I think, of red to bring this up to level. The good thing about doing it in these layers as well, because I've got a black undercoat, if I want to leave some sort of shading and things like that, I can sort of paint this area here and leave the corner so the corner will be a little bit darker. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do when you do it this way around. So it's dark. I've put a bright vibrant red over the top there. I mean, you can see how bright it is on camera there. So what I'll do now is I'll paint over all the stuff that needs to be, you know, solid red. But I've also got this sort of almost pre-shading, as it were. So yeah, basically I'm waiting for the red now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this aside and crack on with a few other things. Okay, so whilst I was working on this back piece here for Red Dwarf, as all the back detailing, there's more to go on, but this is just laid out. None of these parts are glued down. I thought this was a good time to actually talk about some of the aesthetics about greebling a model like this. Basically, it's fairly simple, the way they've done the greebling on Red Dwarf. So I've got this piece here, and you might recognise that from as one of the pieces from the front of the ship. This is just one of the ones that one of the spares I had. I moulded too many. But in essence, this piece here is sort of kind of the outline of Red Dwarf. It's a very similar shape. It's narrow at the front, tapers, has a large rectangular body and cuts off at the back. Now when it comes to the greebling is laid on in a very similar way, in that it runs from front to back. So most of the pieces that you'll see on Red Dwarf are laid horizontally. Most of the surface detail and the greebles are, if they are wider than they are tall, then they will be laid horizontally. And I mean, it's not to say that you can't have vertical pieces. Like I've put this piece on here, and there's this piece here, and then this piece here. But they're just there to sort of break up the shape. They're not there for any other reason really. It's just that so that there's something to divide the shape up to make it more visual interest then. But most of the time all the detail is laid from one side to the other. And that just gives you, because you've got the front of the ship which is this way and it runs from here to here, you'll tend to find that it makes it look more sweeping. Now if I laid this, or took these pieces off here and laid them vertically, if I was to put that on the ship, it would just look really odd. This has a natural sort of flow to it. So all the pieces on here are laid on horizontally. But what I'm going to do now is, if I re-greeble over the top of this, because like I said, I've only put the larger chunkier bits on it, I haven't put any of the smaller pieces on or piping. So if I glue these down now and lay the other pieces on, it's okay to have, you know, pieces going vertical, as long as, you know, the majority of the parts are sweeping from front to back. That's pretty much it really. I don't really know if there's anything else I can tell you about the aesthetics of this, but yeah, that tends to be how all the parts on the model have been laid out. That if you've got really long pieces, if you had a long piece like this, it would be planted that way and not vertical. You can have diagonal pieces, of course. I've got a diagonal piece right there. But as long as it fits the vast majority, which is that the vast majority are going in that trend, it makes it work for the model. It works with the aesthetic of the model. So even though this is sort of like, you know, chucking a lot of bits on a piece of plastic, there is an arrangement to it. There is something about the way you lay these parts on that makes it fit with the rest of the model. So there you go. It's a little bit different to the configuration that I just showed you, but I think this works really well. There's a lot more parts on here now, as well, a lot of small parts, I should say, that are stuck on here. And there's a couple of pipes and things to go over the top as well. So, but they're a bit more delicate, so they get left until this is on the model. I'm going to let this primer dry, and then I can apply it to Red Dwarf. So what I'm about to show you now has absolutely no value whatsoever, I don't think. It only has value to myself. But I'm going to show you it anyway. So when they did the original studio miniature of Red Dwarf, they kit bashed from multiple sources. But one of the sources that they like to use, and they still use to this day, even when they've done the bigatures for Red Dwarf 12, is that they like to pull from the MPC Star Destroyer kit. And when I'm greebling up this section here, I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I put a piece of MPC Star Destroyer on this model? And right there is a piece of original 1970s, 1980s MPC Star Destroyer trench. just stuck on the back there. Like I said, it's got no value to this update whatsoever or to this model. I just thought it would be a really nice thing to do that their model uses it and this one's got a piece on it as well. So I'm going to take this piece now, wait for it to dry, spray it black, do a little bit of painting to it and then apply it to Red Dwarf. Moving on. And there you go, these things are now all in place. Now they're not glued in place, they are literally just slotted in, but they are such a good fit that they don't actually need glue, they just actually sit there. They're actually holding themselves in place. But yeah, they look good, it looks good. I'm very, very happy with how this is looking. Now you might be wondering why I'm going to be putting these in place if I'm still painting this red. You know, surely I'm going to get some red on these parts. I'm bound to, when I'm airbrushing this, I'm bound to get red on it. You're not wrong. There's going to be some red on it. The reason why I painted these like this first and put them in place is because there are certain areas that I'm not going to be able to get to. And if I accidentally hit it with red spray, then I accidentally hit it with red spray. But I can always just go back over that same area. Whereas with, you know, areas that are in there, I can't get to those areas once it's fitted into place. So yeah, paint it now, worry about any overspray or whatnot later. But that's that. Okay, so I'm working on the front detail parts now for Red Dwarf and made this piece here. And what this is just a carved piece out of Foamex foam board. I've got some 5mm Foamex here, and if you've never worked with Foamex before, I've talked about this briefly, but Foamex is honestly, it's one of the best materials you can have for model building. This is what it looks like. It's the best way I can describe this material to you is that it's kind of like a plastic balsa wood. But it's so easy to use. I mean, if I get my knife here, I just want to put a chamfer in this edge. Just lightly cut. And it just goes straight through. It's so easy to use. Normally I use my Stanley knife for this because honestly this is a bit too sharp. This goes through it a little bit too easy. So, but yeah, Stanley knife will go through this. And it's, I mean, peeling carrots is harder than shaping this, honestly. This will just go straight through, try to stay in frame. So it's just really easy stuff to manipulate. And again, if you want to smooth it off as well, I've just got I've wrapped some sandpaper on my ruler. And I'll just give that a sand. And it'll just start smoothing out straight away. I mean, it doesn't look bad because obviously I've carved divots into it, but it's just taking them out. And it's not taking a hell of a lot of effort to do it either. So it's yeah. It's a really lovely material to use. I can't recommend it enough. If you look on eBay, I think you can get. I bought 10 sheets of 5mm for £10, I think. So, but it's just wonderful material to use. It's really good stuff. In fact, I think I mentioned this before, but this stuff is what most of the models in the movie Moon were made from. A lot of this stuff is it's just really fabulous stuff to use. Anyway, I'm going to crack on. I'm going to detail up this piece and get it installed. Moving on. So I've given Red Dwarf several coats of red now, and you can see how bright and vibrant this red really is. The thing is, I don't need it to look like this. What I need it to look like is this. And you can clearly see, you know, a massive difference there. But basically this is just putting black into all the recesses and everything, and then when I've been painting it, what I've been doing is just going over all the sort of higher parts and leaving it. It looks like it's been sort of pin washed with black, but it hasn't. But it's got a really sort of lovely look where you can see all these sort of panels being picked out and everything. So yeah, that's what I need to do to the top. And what I've done now is I've just mixed up some black in my airbrush, and I'm going to go through all these recesses with the airbrush just so that it ends up sort of tying all together. It'll still have a coat of red over the top of that, but the red that goes over the top of it, it'll be sort of it's quite transparent, so when that red goes over the top of it, it'll still look dirty down. But yeah, so the black I've got mixed up as well is about the consistency of ink, really. So the airbrush is gonna be sort of, I'll be firing it, but really, you know, not a lot of paint coming out of it. It'll be a lot of air coming out. So yeah, it'll just sort of darken this all down, dirty it all up, get all sort of grungy. So that's what I'm gonna crack on with right now. So there you go, it's all sort of grimed up now. There's a little bit of overspray in one or two places. I'm not worried about it because it's just for sort of like almost like a pre-shade. So the next layer over the top of it now will, even though the red that I'll be putting on top of it will be quite thin, it'll be this sort of transparent red. What you'll end up with is this sort of look, whereby it looks like it's, like I said, it's been pin washed. It looks like it's had some sort of wash over the top of it, but it hasn't. It's just picked out all the details on the model. So yeah, it's got quite a nice look to it as it is. But yeah, that's not the final result. Let's clean out the airbrush, get some red in there now, and go back over this and make this look pretty, and then mess it up. Okay, so I've got all the trench fixed in now, from the front to the back. So that's all in, and you can see where these sort of gunmetal highlights have just sort of kicking up the edges and the detail. If I go in a bit closer, you should be able to see all that in there. So that's all in and nice and looking good. Also, it's difficult to see, but what I've done when I painted this side here, it's less obvious on the bottom part here because I'm still working on that. But on the top section here, where I've gone round it with sort of a darker shade, it's difficult to see, but you've got like the sort of a shadow on this side, which isn't, because I painted it. Let me just turn this way. So I painted it that way up deliberately, and painted it downwards. And what it's done is that it's left it sort of fairly clean from this angle. But if you look at it from the other way, you can see all this sort of heavier shading just behind the panel, so it looks like there's some sort of forward momentum. Now that's going to get sort of washed out a little bit further along with when it comes to doing the rest of the paint job. But yeah, it does sort of pick out all these lines and everything, so it does really sort of bold everything out. Now I'm going to have to go over it again and again and again before you even get to the final paint job. But yeah, I mean, you can see the difference between this sort of this part here and that there. It's much easier to see all the details on this now that I've done it that way. And the same with the top there. If you look at the top, you can see it's much easier to see all these little panels and squares and everything. Just and all I've done there is just literally just focused more on hitting it from a particular direction, so that the red doesn't actually wash out over the black that's there. Obviously on places like this, I'm gonna have to go back over again and hit those properly so that they're a bit more uniform. But then obviously I've got the final paint job to go over the top of that then, which is going to be breaking it up into smaller panels and using lighter and darker, and then weathering over the top of that. So there's a bit to do, but yeah, I mean look at it. It's looking alright. So I'm working on the offset side now, and you can see, you know, where all the trench and everything's in, and I've got all these extra pieces in, and I was looking at it, and do you know, I know this is how it looks on the studio model, but given how much detail's on the other side, I think I'm just going to add a couple more bits of detail to this. It just doesn't look right, so I'm gonna get some styrene and some bits, and I'm just gonna put the odd extra little bit of detail here and there, just to add something extra to the side, just so it balances out a little bit. I'm not going to do anything major, but it'll just be the odd little bit of detail here or there, just to give it a bit more fleshing out. But that's what I'm going to do now. And there you go. There's the extra detail that I've added to the side now. I'm not trying to do too much, just trying to add, you know, just little bits where, particularly in areas where it was blank, you know. So it just helps the detail it up, just helps add something to it. Like down here, there was absolutely nothing down here. These details are very sort of one level, so I added some extra detail on top. Same as here, there was only pretty much sort of one plane. So by adding an extra detail on top of it, sort of makes it a little bit more multi-dimensional. Yeah, and it just adds a bit of something to it, I think. I think it's an improvement on what it was. Anyway, I'm going to do some paint now and try to get this to match the same level. Shouldn't be difficult really. I'll give it a light coat of, I'll mask around it. I'll give it a light coat of black, and then I'll go back over it with the red then. And then we should be able to crack on. So this is where it's at. I was going to mask it off, but in the end I thought, what the hell, I'll do a freehand. Because obviously, you know, there's paint to go over the top of this, there's lots of other stuff to be done to this. But I think those extra details help break up the stash side a bit more. And I think it definitely adds something to the model. So I'm happy with the way that's looking. The next thing now is to probably just start looking at the paint now, to have a look, see how I'm going to lay out all the panels and the sort of sizes to break it up, because obviously on a ship this big, you know, panels would be sort of really tiny, but you've got to more or less suggest that as opposed to actually paint that. So yeah, but I'm happy with the way it's looking. So this week I was really hoping to get the forks done and the rings done for the back end of Red Dwarf, to get the back and front done. But as it is, I can't sand anything. There's no chance of me sanding anything at all. I'm going to take the next couple of days off because I'm going to have to take my time now working in the garden. Luckily enough, I've got the power tools to assist. I think I'm going to give my next door neighbour a shout to give me a hand to lift the door. But yeah, I can't do any sort of sanding or anything like that. My shoulder just kills. It just absolutely kicks the crap out of me. So yeah, I've really got to get on with that. Yeah, it was a shame because I really was wanting to get the rings done and get that sorted, because once those rings are on, I can have a look, see how stable they are, how solid they are, see if they need to stay on or if they need to be taken off, and then, you know, once if I can put them on, then what it means is that I can get them dressed up, painted up and everything, and sorted, and then I can move on to more important stuff with Red Dwarf. I can actually start on the final paint. But I don't want to really do the final paint when I've still got stuff to construct. But the problem is now I can't construct stuff because I've got limited movement for the next, probably for the next few days, and I've got other stuff that I've got to do. So it's a bit of a shit, but at least I made some good progress on the model in general anyway, so take from that what you will. But I'm going to say, if you've enjoyed this model update, please do give me the like button, because that will help, and do share the video as well. Also feel free to leave a comment down below. But until next time, I'll see you later, guys.